Adrian has a swivel driver seat. He gets way forward in his wheelchair. He has the driver's seat positioned so it's lower so he can transfer downhill. And he has the passenger seat that he can use to help with his balance so that he doesn't flop forward too far. So to get out of the van, Adrian turns his chair and keeps his legs moving with him as he does that. Once he gets his wheelchair in the right position, then he can raise the driver's seat up to make the transfer easier.
It's really important to get the feet in the right position.
And once again, we're going to notice Adrian using the passenger seat even more this time to help with his balance. So he balances himself using his forehead. Now Adrian is motioning us to follow him to the front of the car where he has a little magnetic switch of some sort in the headlight, and he has a little magnetic component to his keychain that he can operate the lift with.
You get that transfer? Karen's in the front seat.
I do have an assisted vehicle. I don't transfer onto a seat. It's an easy lock system that I drive into, and I have tri-pin controls for the gas brake and for my steering wheel. I have to weight shift one good time before I start driving because it's almost impossible to weight shift with the strap on and while I'm driving. This is my chest strap, just so I don't fall forward in my chair when I'm driving.
Now these vans originally were on my wheelchair, and I kind of got sick of them. It's to each their own. And what I did was I just got hooks made up at a local welding shop, and they just hook on. 2 hooks go on the front. Then I take the swing arm up a bit. Then I put the hooks on the back. And where I hook them on to where the armrests normally go. And then I just lift myself up. Now, although this thing's called swing arm lift, the theory of the swing arm is to swing in and out. You're not supposed to swing on the lift. So I take myself in. I propel myself back. If you are able not to use anti-tippers, I still use anti-tippers because I'm only 21 months post-injury. You may want to propel yourself back so that way you don't go right back over top of your chair. So then I pull my bands forward. Take the hooks off. Pull my hooks out of the way so they don't get hung up on my purse. Hook up the front hooks, push myself back. Do up the one rear hook, bring it up so there's tension on. Here again, going back on my anti-tippers, and then just bringing myself out. Now, the reason why I have a swing arm lift is because I'm a farm boy. And I have a tendency to get out in awkward situations where most lifts that have a tailgate, they won't touch the ground. So they won't engage, allowing the tailgate to go down on a smooth surface and allowing me to evac.
So Eric has 2 remote controls that he uses. The first one he's using is responsible for lifting the cap and then lifting and swiveling his wheelchair out of the back. It can also lower or raise the wheelchair from the lift. Now with Eric's second remote, it will actually swivel his driver's seat so that he can face outwards. It'll raise and lower that seat and move it out so he's actually outside the vehicle. Once he's out there, he can reposition his chair and he can lower it down and position himself for the transfer.
Voila.
Now this is Chantal. She decided to purchase an SUV and didn't want any lift modifications. So she actually has tetraplegia, but she has very, very strong arms. So she does a big lift up into the driver's seat. And now we're going to see her disassemble her chair. So she uses her brakes, so she takes the brakes off first and pops the tires off. Now she has her driver's seat tilted backwards so she can actually lean back, reach over and put all of her parts of the chair in the back seat. And she actually does a huge lift now. Doesn't even fold the backrest down, just lifts the whole thing, cushion and all, into the back. Now for Chantal to get out of her vehicle, it's basically just the reverse of what you just saw. So she's going to put her chair back together. You want to be careful not to scratch your chair too much on the asphalt. All you just have to do is put the brakes on, do scissor brakes. And pop back out. So this is Bert's truck that we're looking at right now. As you can see, the cap on the back lifts up automatically. And then he has a swinging arm that lifts his wheelchair out. This one's actually called the Bruno lift. You can see Bert has a little platform seat that he transfers over to. And there's a little armrest there to help with balance. And he uses remote controls to lower the platform, and he can lower his wheelchair down. So he gets his feet solid on the ground, brings the chair over. He has like a claw mechanism that actually grasps his wheelchair quite quickly. So he just releases that. Flips the arm up, does a little transfer over into his wheelchair. Flips the seat up and he's ready to go. Yeah.
There you go.
You make her work here.
He does.
Now Gary has his wife help him put his wheelchair in and take it out of the trunk of the car. And she hands him the transfer board and he's just going to do a lovely transfer from the passenger seat into his wheelchair. The transfer board is just there to help bridge the gap. And this is a technique that a lot of people use when they're quite early on in their rehab and they want to get into other people's cars before they have their own modified vehicle. That's good enough. Going.
That's it.
Thank you.
So the first step is I lock my brakes and then I transfer onto this little seat. I use the, thankfully I'm not very heavy, so I can use the door to lift myself. I have a little bar that comes down that gives me some balance and a strap that is around the cushion. This little box has an in, out, up and down feature, so I can pull this out. It hooks around the strap, and then I can lift the chair up. And what I do is I just direct it back into the van. This van doesn't have automatic door closers, so I have invented my own little hook to be able to close the door. The seat that I'm sitting on actually has a control box as well that will raise and lower it, but I have disconnected it and instead just lift my legs in and lift myself in like that. The seat folds up and the bar folds up, and now we're ready to go. Here we go. My monkey routine. So this is so if I needed to move from the driver's seat to the passenger seat, I would bring my legs across here and I'm sorry, got a sunroof.
Now Bob, he drives a regular car. He is a very Quick transfer in, he puts his feet into the car, transfers over into the driver's seat. And then basically just has to break down the chair a little bit so that it's going to fit inside the car. So he takes the wheels off. And Bob has experimented with this a lot, so he knows that he can keep his chair in an unfolded format and it actually fits best in his back seat.
That's it.
Done.
Well, I'm going for a workout. All right, see you later.
Now Roy does not have any modifications for his front seat, so he just does a lift up into the seat using 1 foot in the van and 1 foot out of the van. And then he has a small little compact lift that fits in the back of the minivan. It'll just pop out and he just has to wheel his wheelchair back over top of it. So this lift lifts it straight up and in. Coming out of the van, it's very much the same. He just has a hand on the wheelchair to make sure it doesn't roll away, and he gets it out of the way of the lift. Puts his brake on. And simply transfers out.
Alright, so I wheel in and I just put on my right brake because the left side's wedged against the door. Scooch forward, put both my legs in, and I grab a hold of the roof, which it would be better to have a grab bar. And lift myself in and sort of turn to the outside as I'm going in. And I just put my shoulder on the B pillar to stabilize myself. Take off the brake. With my left hand, I grab a hold of the bar. I switch to my right, grab a hold of the footrest, pull it in. Normally I'd have a rope to close the door. Pull my legs around to the front. Position myself ready to drive. Just position my legs again so I'm ready to pull the chair out. With my left hand and my shoulder against the seat, I let the chair halfway out, then I switch to my right, which is now against the B pillar, and back to the left. Put my one brake on again. Adjust my legs again, grab a hold of the roof, pivot out, grab the door, and my right hand's behind the seat. And that's it.
tell me about that.
So this is a different type of minivan for Tim. This is one with a ramp, so you can, in bad weather, you can get out of the bad weather quickly. You just wheel on up the ramp. He has the swivel captain's chair for the driver's seat, so he can get it in the right position, just transfer over into it. And the only problem is you just got to be careful that you don't twist your ankles when you're moving the seat back to where you want to drive from.
Back.
And to get out of the van, all he has to do is swivel the seat back, transfer back into his wheelchair, and then pay attention to how he wheels down the ramp, just to avoid feeling like he's falling. With that steep slope of the ramp, he actually does a wheelie and goes down very comfortably. This is Dave getting into a very big pickup truck. It's actually called a dually. We see he's lifting his legs up onto the floor of the truck, so he's lifting both of them in there to make the transfer easier. He's just pausing here to let his leg spasms relax a little. Pulls himself forward, hangs onto the seat and the door, and up he goes. So it's a huge lift, so if you have bad shoulders, beware. Now he's disassembling his chair, so he's taking the cushion, the clothing guards off. Notice that Dave is always hanging on to something, so he's either reaching up with his right arm to hang on to the inside of the truck, or he's leaning on his wheelchair to help with his balance. Some people may choose to put their seatbelt on to help with balance here. Dave just chooses safe hand placement. He folds his chair up and right into the back. And now he's doing it in the reverse, just to show us how quick this transfer really is for him. Keep in mind, this is after many years of practice. Just putting his clothing guards back in and his cushion. Now note that he does not have brakes on his chair, so he has to be careful where he parks, because if he's parking facing up a hill, his chair is going to roll away. So you have to be careful. Just out he goes, keeps both his feet in until he gets in his chair, pulls his legs out, and he's in.